Hey guys, Mary here. I figured I'd go ahead and do another live stream. And in this live stream, I'll be discussing all shows that I watch a lot and don't watch as much. Um, if you want to go ahead and grab something to drink or grab a snack or something, feel free. I'll get started here in just a few moments. Uh, I'm going to grab me a Hawaiian punch before I get started, and I'll be right back. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start with Drake and Josh. I watch Drake and Josh a lot. I watch it as much as possible. Full House, I watch it as much as possible. Fuller House, I don't watch it as much. 16 and Pregnant, I watch it as much as possible. Teen Mom OG, I watch it as much as possible. Teen Mom 2, I watch it as much as possible. Teen Mom 3, I watch it as much as possible. Wizards of Waverly Place, I don't watch it as often. The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, I watch it but not as much. The Sweet Life on Deck, I watch it not as much. The Thundermans, I watch it as much as possible. Henry Danger, I watch it as much as possible. Game Shakers, I watch it as much as possible. iCarly, I watch it as much as possible. Victorious, I watch it as much as possible. Hannah Montana, I watch it but not as much. Good Luck Charlie, I watch it as much as possible. Cupcake Wars, I watch it as much as possible, and I like some of the flavors, the cupcake flavors that they come up with, and the way that they decorate, design the cupcakes. It's pretty neat. Uh, WWE Monday Night Raw, I watch it as much as possible. Um, WWE Friday Night SmackDown, I watch it as much as possible. I like watching the wrestling. It's pretty neat. Um, I also watch the pay-per-views when they're due. I try to watch them as much as possible too, and stuff. I watch them as much as possible and see who wins the belt. Spring Bacon Championship. I watch it, but not as much. um, the Halloween Bacon Championship. I watch it, but not as much. Uh, Holiday Bacon Championship. I watch it as much as possible. Kids Bacon Championship. I watch it, but not as much. Summer Bacon Championship. I watch it as well, but not as often. Um, I've watched the Animaniacs. The Animaniacs, I watch it, but not as much. Cow and Chicken, I've watched it, um, not as much. um, I've watched Curious George as well, but I don't watch it as often as usual. Postman Pat, I've watched it. Um, I don't watch it as much. Uh, Tiny Toon Adventures, I've watched it, but not as much. Pingu, I've watched it. It's about a penguin. Um, I've watched it, and I don't watch it as often like I used to watch. Thomas and Friends, I watch it as often as I can. Um, I like watching it and stuff. I like Thomas, Percy. Um, I like Emily real good. Mavis, Salty, Harold. um, I like watching it as much as I can. Uh, I also like Millie on there too. Millie, um, Jack, Alfie, Byron the Bulldozer, uh, the Ren and Stimpy show. I've watched it, but not as much. Rugrats. I try to watch it as much as possible. Um, Tasmania. I've watched it, but I don't watch it as much. Um, I've watched the show The Munsters. I've watched it and stuff. I try to watch it as often as I can. Uh, Reba. I've watched Reba before, and I try to watch it as much as possible. Uh, Sanford and Son. I've I've watched it, but I don't watch it as much like I used to. Um, Same with the Good Times. I've watched it. Um, I don't watch it as often compared to the way I watched before. Family Matters. I've watched it. I try to watch it as often as I can. Um, Married with Children. I like watching it and stuff. I watch it as much as possible. And one of my favorite parts was when Alan Jefferson was putting together the satellite dish on the roof and they kept falling off. I cracked up at it. I cracked up at it every time. Um, and everything. They got some really funny moments on Married with Children. Um, and I watch it as often as I can, as much as possible. Dog the Bounty Hunter, I've watched it. I don't watch it as much compared to the way I've watched it before. Um, the Little Mermaid, I've watched it, the show. Um, I've watched it, but I don't watch it as much compared to the way I used to. Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. Um, I've watched it, but not as often. Uh, Madeline. I've watched Madeline. Um, I've watched it, but not as much compared to when I watched before. Um, Rocco's Modern Life. Um, I've watched it, but I've not um, watched as much compared to before. Uh, Sonic the Hedgehog. Um, I've watched it. I've watched the show of it. Uh, I don't watch as much, but I try to watch as much as I can for sure. VeggieTales. I've watched VeggieTales before. Um, there's times I watch it a lot, and then there's times I don't watch as much, just depending on um, what the episode's mainly about, stuff like that. The Berenstain Bears. I've watched it um, and everything. I try to watch as much as I can, but I've not watched as much compared to the way I've watched it before, more or less. Um, Little Bear. I've watched it. I've watched Little Bear. Um, I don't watch as much compared to uh, when I watched it recently. Uh, the Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries. I watch it as much as possible. Uh, Blues Clues. I do watch Blues Clues. I watch it as much as possible. I love Blue and Magenta, Periwinkle. Uh, they're my main favorite characters and everything. And I also like a side table drawer as well. Um, one of my favorite parts from the whole series was when Blue was a baby, um, when she came out of the book, uh, when Steve was little on the holiday episode. Um, I thought it was so cool, and getting to see her as a baby, it was pretty neat, um, and everything. Yeah, the Angry Beavers, I watch it, but not as much. Caillou, I used to watch Caillou before, but I don't watch as often. Um, Donkey Kong Country, I've watched it, and I don't watch as much like I used to. Um, I've watched Kipper the dog. I've watched it. Um, I've watched, but I don't watch as much compared to when I first watched it. Um, and I've watched Recess. I've watched it. I don't watch as much, but I've watched pretty often recently. Uh, JJ the Jet Plane. I watch it as much as possible. Augie and the Cockroaches. I watch it as much as possible. They have some funny moments with Augie and the Cockroaches for sure. Um, PB and J Otter. I've watched it, um, but I don't watch as much compared to watching recently. The Powerpuff Girls. I watch it as much as possible. Roly Poly Oly. Um, I watch it as much as possible as well. And I just finished the last part of season 5 earlier. Um, I've watched all the seasons the past couple days with them, and I enjoy watching it for sure. They got some good parts on the episodes and everything. It's really fun to watch. Um, and stuff. I also watch it during like when I have a snack or something, or like when I order food or something like that. I usually watch it for sure. For one, the Wild Thornberries. I've watched it. Um, I don't watch it as often, but um, I have watched it recently. Okay. 64 Zoo Lane. I've watched it, but it's been a little bit, but I don't watch it as often. Courage the Cowardly Dog, I've watched it, but it's been a little while and I don't watch as often. Dragon Tales, I've watched it. Um, I don't watch as much or as often. Ed, Ed, and Eddie, I've watched it. Um, I still do off and on, but not as often. Little Bill, I've watched Little Bill. Um, I don't watch as much, but have watched recently. SpongeBob SquarePants. I watch SpongeBob as much as possible. Uh, Clifford the Big Red Dog. I've watched it. Uh, I still do, but I don't watch as much compared to watching recently. Dora the Explorer. I still watch it, and I try to watch as much as possible. Pokemon the series. I've watched it, but not as much. The Fairly Odd Parents. I still watch them as much as possible. The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Um, I still watch it, but not as much. Oswald. Um, I used to watch Oswald before, and uh, I don't watch it as often compared to when I watched recently. Sagwa, the Chinese Siamese cat. I still watch it some, but I don't watch it compared to when I first watched it. Stanley, I've watched it, but I don't watch as much. Tom and Jerry, I watch it as much as possible. The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. Um, I've watched it, but not as much. The Fresh Beat Band, I still watch it for sure. I still watch the Fresh Beat Band for sure. I like Marina on there and stuff. They got some good episodes. Marina, Shayna Rose, she was the one that played as Marina in seasons 1 and 2, and then Tara Perry took uh, Shayna Rose's place in season 3. I still like watching it though. I mean, they both did a really good job in the series. Uh, the Doodle Bops. I still watch it, and I try to watch as much as possible. I usually watch my favorite episodes and stuff. They do have some good episodes for sure. Um, Baby Looney Tunes. I still watch it for sure. I still watch it for sure. Kim Possible. I used to watch it. Um, I've watched it before, but not as often. But I still have it saved on my Disney Plus. Uh, Max and Ruby. I watch it as much as possible. Um, Power Rangers SPD. It's also known as Space Patrol Delta. Um, I still watch it. I seen. I found it online. The actual Power Rangers uniform. from Space Patrol Delta, and I was gonna dress up as the Pink Ranger and stuff. When I was little, I was the Pink Ranger, but it was from Operation Overdrive um, and stuff. I like the Pink Ranger really well, and and all that. So I was gonna see what I could do from there, um, and everything, um, and yeah, and stuff. Power Rangers Space Patrol Delta has been one of my favorite shows, and I try to watch it as much as I possibly can. Um, Same with Power Rangers Mystic Force. I like the Pink Ranger from there, and I like the Blue Ranger as well. Um, and everything. They're my favorite characters, and they got some good episodes as well. Uh, Power Rangers Operation Overdrive. Uh, it's like I talked about there moments ago and stuff that I like the Pink Ranger really well. Uh, Clifford's Puppy Days. Um, I still watch it, but not as much compared to when I watched recently. Um, JoJo's Circus. I've watched it, but not as much compared to watching before. Um, the Koala Brothers. I've watched the Koala Brothers before, and I still try to watch them as much as possible. Lilo and Stitch, the series. Um, I still watch it. Try to watch as much as possible. I have it saved on my uh, Disney Plus right now. Rubbadubbers. I watch it as much as possible. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I watch it as much as possible. Um, the Backyardigans. I watch it as much as possible as well. Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Um, I still watch it off and on, but not as much as I have recently. Higglytown Heroes. I watched it just there a couple days ago and stuff. I finished all the series of it, and they got some good episodes for sure. Um, Miss Spider's Sunny Patch Friends. Um, I still watch it off and on, but not as much as I have recently. Um, Peppa Pig. Um, I've watched Peppa Pig before, and I have recently. Um, I don't watch it as much as possible though. Bob the Builder. I still watch it. I have it saved here um, on my Amazon Prime, and I watch as much as possible for sure. Um, Camp Laszlo. I've watched it. Um, I still do, but not as much. Uh, Cat Scratch. I've watched it, but not as much as I have recently. Charlie and Lola. I still watch it as much as I possibly can. Go Dig Go Go. I watch it as much as possible. Johnny Test. I've watched it, but not as much. Little Einsteins. I watch it as much as possible, and I just got through watching it there a couple days ago. My gym partner's a monkey. I've watched it, but not as much as I usually would watch. Pinky Dinky Doo, I've watched it. Um, I watch it as much as I can. Um, there's times I may not watch as often. Um, Pocoyo, I've watched it. Um, I've watched Pocoyo recently, but not as much as usual. Squidbillies, I've watched it, but not as much. Handy Manny, I try to watch as much as I possibly can. Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, I watch it as much as possible. Puka, I've watched Puka, and I try to watch as much as possible. Tom and Jerry Tales, I try to watch it as much as possible as well. Wonder Pets, I've watched it, but not as much. Wow Wow Woobsy, I try to watch it as much as possible. Yin Yang Yo, I've watched it, and I try to watch as much as possible. Super Robot Monkey Team Hyperforce Go, I try to watch it as much as possible. I like the yellow one, Nova. I like her on the show, on the series. Um, Back at the Barnyard, I watch it as much as possible. Care Bears Adventures in Care-a-Lot, I try to watch it as much as I can. Chowder, I don't watch as much. My Friends Tigger and Pooh, I watch as much as possible. Phineas and Ferb, I don't watch as much. Shaun the Sheep, I try to watch as much as possible. Super Y, I try to watch as much as possible. El Tigre, The Adventures of Manny Rivera, I've watched it, but not as much. Yo Gabba Gabba, I try to watch it as much as possible. Abby Hatcher, try to watch as much as possible. Care Bears Unlock the Magic, I try to watch it as much as possible. Imagination Movers, I've watched it, but I don't watch as often. Third and Bird, I've used to watch Third and Bird. I don't watch as much. Chuggington, I try to watch it as much as possible. The Garfield Show, I try to watch it as much as possible as well. The Mighty Bee, I've watched before, and I try to watch as much as I can. Ni Hao Kai Lan, I watch as much as possible. Annoying Orange, I watch as much as possible. Dinosaur Train, I watch, but not as much. Fanboy and Chum Chum, I watch it as much as possible. Jungle Junction, I watch it as much as possible. I've watched Olivia. It's a show similar to Peppa Pig, a little bit, and everything. It's similar to Peppa Pig, but I don't watch as much. Um, True Jackson VP, I watch as much as possible. Timmy Time, I watch but not as often. Um, Danny Phantom, I've watched but not as much. Adventure Time, I still watch but not as often. Booba, I try to watch as much as possible. The Cat in the Hat knows a lot about that. I've watched but not as much. Doodlebop's Rock and Road Show, I try to watch as much as possible. Fish Hooks, I've watched it. Um, I have it saved on my Disney Plus right now. The Hive, I've watched it, but not as much. Marioku Yummy, I've watched it, but not as much. My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, I've watched it, but not as much. Autonauts, I still watch it. I try to watch as much as possible. Planet Sheen, I've watched, but not as much. Pound Puppies, I've watched Pound Puppies before, but I don't watch as much. Um, Regular Show, I've watched it, but I don't watch as much. Strawberry Shortcake's Berry Bitty Adventures, I try to watch as much as possible. Tough Puppy, I've watched it, but not as much. Team Umizoomi, I try to watch it as much as possible. The Twisted Whisker Show, I watch it as much as possible. Babar and the Adventures of Badoo, um, I've watched it, but not as much. Uh, Almost Naked Animals, I've watched it. I try to watch as much as possible. They got some good episodes. It's real funny. Um, Bubble Guppies, um, I try to watch it as much as possible. Um, Fish and Chips, I've watched it. Um, I try to watch as much as possible. Canimals, I've watched Canimals before. Uh, Try to watch as much as possible. They have some good episodes for sure. Gaspard and Lisa, I've watched it before, but not as much. Care Bears, Welcome to Care-a-Lot. I've watched it, and I try to watch as much as I possibly can. Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. I've watched it, but not as much. Doc McStuffins. I try to watch it as much as possible. The High Fructose Adventures of Annoying Orange. Try to watch it as much as possible. Kumi Kumi. I've watched it before. Don't watch as much. Num Noms Snackables. I watch it as much as possible. Teletubbies Let's Go. I try to watch it as much as possible. Teletubbies Let's Go is on YouTube, here on YouTube. And everything's same as Num Noms Snackables. It's on YouTube as well. and letting you know up front and stuff. I have playlists here on YouTube, and I have one and stuff where you can watch like the shows and stuff, like my favorite shows and stuff from here on YouTube. As soon as you can and get the time, feel free to check it out. You can watch anytime and everything. And I also have the shows sneak peeks playlist as well, where you can check out to kind of get a good idea of the shows and everything. Um, Same with the games and movies as well. And everything. I have a playlist of that as well that has the sneak peeks where you can watch them. Um, and I have a playlist uh, of, of the games and movies where you can watch them. It's Mary's favorite games, uh, Mary's favorite movies, Mary's favorite shows, stuff like that. You can go to them and you can watch them anytime that you want and everything. When you can and get the time, feel free to check them out. Uh, Robot and Monster, I've watched it, but not as much. Nickelodeon Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I watch as much as possible. Tickety Talk, I've watched, but not as much. Angry Birds Toons, I watch as much as possible. Camp Lake Bottom, I've watched it, but not as much. Henry Hugglemonster, I watch it as much as possible. It's on my Disney Plus right now. Julius Jr., I try to watch it as much as possible. La La Loopsy, I've watched, but not as often. Mophie, I've watched Mophie before. It's about a little bunny and stuff. I've watched it. And stuff I've watched recently, but not as often. Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures, I watch as much as possible. Paw Patrol, I watch as much as possible. I like Sky on there. I like Sky and Marshall really good. They're my favorite characters and everything, and I watch as much as possible. Rabbids Invasion, I watch it as much as possible. Rocket Monkeys, I've watched, but not as much. Sanjay and Craig, I've watched it, but not as much. Teen Titans Go, I watch as much as possible. Uncle Grandpa, I watch as much as possible. Wander Over Yonder, I watch it as much as possible. Blaze and the Monster Machines, I've watched it and I watch as much as possible. Hey Dougie, I've watched it, but as not as much compared to what I have recently. Nunchucks, I've watched it, but not as much as I have before. Peanuts featuring good old Charlie Brown, I watch it, and I try to watch it as much as possible. Sheriff Callie's Wild West, I watch it as much as possible. Sonic Boom, I watch it as much as possible. It's another Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon. I watch it as much as I possibly can. Super Wings, I've watched it and I try to watch it as much as possible. The Tom and Jerry Show, I watch it as much as possible. Wally Kazam, I like watching it, and I try to watch it as much as possible. They got some good episodes for sure. Zack and Quack, I used to watch it, but not as much. The Adventures of Puss in Boots. I've watched it, and I try to watch as much as possible, and everything. Alrighty. Alvin and the Chipmunks. I've watched it. I watched the cartoon of it, but I don't watch as much. Fresh Beat Band of Spies. I watch it as much as possible. Harvey Beaks. I've watched it, but not as much. Little Charmers. Watched it, not as much. Molong. I've watched it. It's about a little bunny as well. I've watched it, and I try to watch it as much as possible. Wabbit. I've watched it. It's another one of the newest Looney Tunes shows. I watch it as much as possible. It's real funny. I try to watch it as much as I possibly can. Pig, Goat, Banana, Cricket. I've watched it, but not as much. PJ Mask. I've watched it, not as much. Shimmer and Shine. I love watching Shimmer and Shine. I love Shine on there, and I try to watch it as much as I possibly can. Sunny Bunnies. I've watched it, but not as much. But I try to watch as much as I possibly can. Talking Tom and Friends. I've watched it, but not as much. We Bear Bears. I've watched it, but not as much compared to the way I've watched it recently. Wish and Poof, I've watched it, but not as much. Bunnicula, I've watched it, and I try to watch it as much as possible. Gummy Bar and Friends, the Gummy Bear Show, I've watched it, try to watch it as much as possible. Luna Petunia, I try to watch it as much as possible. Bunsen is a Beast. I've watched it, but don't watch as much as compared to the way I've watched before. Mickey and the Roadster Racers. I watch it as much as possible, and I have it saved on my Disney Plus right now. Puppy Dog Pals. I watch it as much as possible, and I have it saved on my Disney Plus as well. Sunny Day. I've watched it, but not as much. True and the Rainbow Kingdom. I watch it as much as possible. Unikitty. I've watched it. I try to watch it as much as possible. Om Nom Stories. It's a cartoon from the video game Cut the Rope. I watch it as much as I possibly can, for sure. The Adventures of Kid Danger. I've watched it, but not as much. Let me see here. Let me see here. Alrighty. Um, Becca's Bunch. I've watched it, but not as much. Bluey. I've watched it. I try to watch as much as possible. Butterbean's Cafe. I watch it as much as possible. The Epic Tales of Captain Underpants. I've watched it, but not as much. Muppet Babies. I watch it as much as possible. Total Drama Rama. I've watched, but not as much. Trolls The Beat Goes On. I've watched, but not as often. Disney Mickey Mouse. I watch it as much as possible. Disney Tsum Tsum. I watch it as much as possible. Um, I have Disney Tsum Tsum on my playlist uh, here on YouTube. My Disney Mickey Mouse is saved on my Disney Plus uh, and everything. Uh, Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Uh, I've um, I've watched it, but not as often. Okay. Uh, Ready, Steady, Wiggle. I still watch it. Um, and stuff. I like Emma on there, really good. Uh, and everything. I like Emma and Lockie on there, pretty good. Uh, and everything. Blues Clues and You. Uh, I still watch it as much as possible. Um, excuse me. Blues Room. I watch it as much as possible. Corn and Peg. I've watched, but not as often. Mau Mau, Heroes of Pure Heart. Uh, I've watched it, but not as much. Rainbow Butterfly, Unicorn Kitty. Uh, I've watched. I've watched it, and I try to watch as much as possible. Baby Shark's Big Show. I've seen it, and it's a good one. Pickwick Pack. Um, I've watched it, but not as much. Trollstopia. Uh, I've watched it, but not as much. Uh, The Wonderful World of Mickey Mouse. I still watch it, watch as much as possible. Uh, Gabby's Dollhouse. I watch as much as possible. Uh, Camp Coral SpongeBob's Underyears. I watch as much as possible. Mickey Mouse Funhouse. I watch as much as possible. Autonauts Above and Beyond. I watch as much as possible. The Patrick Star Show. I watch as much as possible. Uh, Nickelodeon, The Smurfs. I watch it as much as possible. Uh, the Snoopy Show. I watch it as much as possible. Spotty and His Amazing Friends. I've watched, but not as often. Uh, Strawberry Shortcake Berry in the Big City. I watch it as much as possible. Thomas and Friends, All Engines Go. I've watched it. I've watched Thomas and Friends, All Engines Go, but I'm more into the original Thomas and Friends, the original series. Um, but other than that and stuff, I try to watch it as well. Uh, Tom and Jerry in New York, I watch it as much as possible. Alice's Wonderland Bakery, watch it as much as possible. Angry Birds Summer Madness, I watch it as much as possible as well. Uh, Cars on the Road, um, I watch it as much as possible. Um, it's a series from the hit movie Cars, um, from the movie Disney Pixar Cars. It's really good. I like Mater for sure. Um, and everything. I like watching it as much as possible. Same as I do the movie. The Fairly Odd Parents, Fairly Odder, I've watched, but not as much. Uh, Ice Age Scrat Tales, I watch it as much as possible. Sesame Street Mecha Builders, I watch it as much as possible. Augie and the Cockroaches Next Generation, I watch it as much as possible. Sonic Prime, I've watched, but not as much. Um, We Baby Bears, I've watched it, not as much. Uh, Rubble and Crew, um, I watch it as much as possible. It's a series that's from the TV show Paw Patrol, and they made a series of Rubble and everything, and it's really good. They got some good episodes for sure. Super Wise Comic Book Adventures. I've watched it, but not as much. Super Kitties. I watch it as much as possible. Tiny Toons Luniversity. I've watched it, but not as much. Dora. I love Dora and stuff. The new series. Um, it's a series that it's new from the original Dora the Explorer. Um, and I love this one as well. And I try to watch it as much as possible. The Fairly Odd Parents, A New Wish. Uh, I haven't seen this one yet, but I'll definitely look into watching for sure. Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Um, I've seen it, and I do recommend watching as much as possible. The Loud House. I've watched it, but not as much. And I've watched The Wiggles. Um, I watch it as much as possible for sure. Uh, I like Dorothy on there. She's cute, and they got some good episodes, um, for sure. Um, let's see here. All right. Uh, One of my most favorite parts from the whole Wiggle series was when Dorothy was a baby and stuff. I like it really well, and everything. And Greg, he was the original Wiggle, and then later on and stuff, Sam took over, and then later on after that and stuff, Emma uh took over, and then uh Sahai and stuff. She's the new one, and they've done really well. and I enjoy watching the episodes. They had some good episodes for sure, um, and everything. I like the old version, and I like like I talked about there moments ago. Ready, Steady, Wiggle. I like it really good as well. Um, I've seen Greg in some of the newest Wiggles movies, uh, and everything, and everything, and it's pretty neat. And I've also seen him on Ready Steady Wiggle as well on the show. I've seen him on there, same as Jeff and everything, all of them and stuff. I've seen him on the new series, and it's really neat. Um, and everything, and I really enjoy for sure. Um, and yeah, I hope that y'all enjoyed this live stream um, and everything. Uh, I'm gonna get ready and in the live stream. Uh, in my next upcoming live stream, which I'm working on it right now. I just now got started working on it. In my next live stream, I'll be discussing all games that I play a lot and don't play as much. I'll be doing that next. That'll be in the next live stream. And I hope y'all enjoyed this live stream. And I appreciate those of you for taking the time to tune in. Means a lot to me and my channel and everything. And I hope y'all have a blessed day, blessed night, blessed evening. Hope y'all have a good one. And I will see you all on my next one. Bye bye for now.